Welcome to The Odd Show, where the G is silent and represents a God who is sometimes difficult to see in the world that we live in. Join the discussion as we try to figure out how to live as Christians in that place of tension created by a world that doesn't quite get us and a church that often reacts rather than acting out of compassion. Now, here's your hosts, Bruce Pagano and Thomas Hogan.
Hello everyone, this is Thomas with The Odd Show. The G is silent. Oddly enough, for the audience, this is another odd topic. See what I did there? This is a format where we kind of present an idea, ask a few questions, and then leave the discussion, I guess, instead of between myself and a co-host, up to you. So today I'm going to talk about knowledge of the true self, which is fun for philosophy, but specifically as it pertains to the Christian life in performance-based Christianity. And for those of you that don't know what performance-based Christianity is, it is a faith based on ability and inability. So what you do and don't do, or can or can't do, determining your closeness, your relationship to God and God's work or God's purpose in life. So what happens, or what can happen, in your exposure to faith or religion or denomination or whatever, what can happen is you get distracted from serving God to know Him, serving God so that you can know Him and be known by Him or reveal yourself. That gets sidetracked for serving God out of obligation and duty, so that you can, the more you accomplish, the better off you are, as opposed to the more you know Him, the better off you are. That's performance-based Christianity. The opposite of that would be faith-based. The more I trust God, the more I know God and know myself, the better off I am. That's a separate, those are two separate ideas. They seem the same in the beginning of your faith walk, but the longer you go on this walk, the further you get from two ends of the spectrum. So specifically when it comes to performance-based, I don't want to make it sound discouraging to better. I don't want to be discouraging towards those who are trying to better themselves and using religion to like help you build that out. Like I want to have a better conscience. I want to have a better perspective. I want to have a more righteous demeanor and activity in my life. I don't want to discourage that. I think that's healthy. But I also want to caution anyone who's kind of leaning that direction that the true self isn't based on, the true self as far as the Bible's concerned, is not based on how well you do or perform. It's based on how well you submit to what you know. And if you don't know much, then you need to embrace knowledge or wisdom or understanding that comes from the Lord, as we say. And as opposed to doing more to prove that I know more, right? So I don't want to discourage people who are pushing themselves to become better. I just want you to know that that's not the true you. The things you do, you are not summed up by the things you can or cannot accomplish, or have failed in, or have succeeded in. You're defined by who you are, which is defined further by whose you are. So I want to make that clear, that it's who you belong to determines who you are, not what you'll become one day if you perform enough, and nothing else. So I am a child of my parents, and my future is kind of, I wouldn't say fated, but it is mapped according to who I align myself with, who I belong to, not who I can please the most, which is what performance-based Christianity pushes, that I need to please these people or this system or this organization, and therefore I will prove my worth. God doesn't accept that. It's clear in the New Testament that all righteousness is as filthy rags compared to the righteousness offered through Christ. So identity in Christianity is a big thing. It belongs, it applies to everything else. And so I just want to be careful not to say it doesn't matter what you do, because it does matter what you do, but it only matters what you do and as far as you know who you are. A lot of people perform and do things with no knowledge of themselves. And why is that a bad thing? Well, it's a bad thing typically because we talk about Christianity as a journey a lot, and there's a destination. So I have a desire to get, my destination this summer is to be in Kansas City, to be kind of serving and doing some ministry stuff and spending some time with my family that I haven't seen in a while. So that's my intention. That's where my destination for this kind of area in my life is right now. That doesn't, just because that's my destination doesn't mean that when I get there I won't realize I don't belong there. Or the opposite could be true. I could really enjoy where I'm at and realize that I don't belong here. Or there could be a place where I don't want to be, and that's where I belong. And that dichotomy, that wrestling through that in my life is determined not by my ability or inability to perform, but in knowing myself and knowing God. That knowledge, that conscience, not consciousness, I'll spell it out maybe down here. Consciousness is an awareness of others, of locality, like where I'm at. That's not conscience, which is in a self-direction, right? Or an inner direction. Sometimes not self, but an inner direction. Those two are two separate things. And a lot of people are conscious of where they're at. They're conscious of their location and their destination or their path that they're on, but they're not conscious. They don't have an intentional self-direction or inner direction about where that is. And that leads to all kinds of problems in the faith. In the Christian faith, a lot of young adults especially kind of get into this trap where they think they're happy where they're at, and only to realize one day that spiritually they have nothing there, that they shouldn't be there, or they don't know where to go next. They don't know what steps to take to get to their destination because they're unclear about who they are and who God is, or who God is trying to, or how God is trying to reveal himself to them. So that's huge. It plays out in everything. You know, the way you build relationships, the way you do ministry, the way you love people, the way you treat yourself has a lot to do with your ability to recognize that, am I basing this relationship or this intention or purpose in my life off of performance? Will I be successful or fail at it? Or am I basing it off of, this is where I belong regardless of whether I fail or succeed, right? So that's kind of what I wanted to present. And an easy way to kind of determine, I think, for myself anyway, I can't speak for everyone, but for me to determine for myself if I'm in the right place or not the right place has a lot to do with sitting down and asking, do I know who I am? Do I know whose I am? And do I know where I need to be? Now, whether I'm there or not, that's irrelevant most of the time because I'm not. But knowing the answer to those questions, or being able to ask those questions without extreme discomfort. I remember when I first started asking myself these questions, a good friend of mine named Carlos, who doesn't watch the show, so I don't have to worry about kind of calling him out, but he's the one who kind of got me in this direction to start asking these questions. And when I first started asking the question, it was very uncomfortable because I didn't know a lot of the answer. Right? And not only did I not know the answer, I felt the more, if I found out the answer, the worst thing for me at the time, whenever I started asking these questions, was the answer may force me to make some very hard decisions about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and how I'm going to get it, how I'm going to do whatever I have to do next. What the things I'm going to have to give up and the things I'm going to have to take on in my life are not necessarily going to be comfortable depending on the answer to those questions. So I would say ask that to yourself. It's not about finding out if other people are where they need to be, which is a lot of times performance-based. You know, I'm looking at someone's life and I'm saying, are they really where they need to be? Are they doing what they need to be doing? And that's all a performance-based mentality, not a faith-based mentality of understanding words of the Lord and his direction and his spiritual conscience that he's kind of guiding you in. That's a much harder thing to deal with. And so I wanted to present that to the audience and draw your own conclusions. Come up with some counter arguments, or maybe encourage me on as I continue to ask these hard questions to myself, and ask them to yourself. Find out if you really know who you are and where you belong. It's likely that it's not where you are at right now, but you will likely get on a path towards that once you start asking those hard questions. Christianity is about hard questions, not easy answers, hard questions. So that's it for the Odd Show today. Thank you so much for listening. We love the audience and know that God is doing something crazy and big, and He's moving. So we'll see what response we get and talk to you on the next topic. I think we're going to be back as a hosting team soon. All right. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Thanks for checking out The Odd Show. You can follow Bruce on Twitter at bpags2 and Thomas at BlenderZen. Remember to rate and review us on iTunes and share us with your friends. Until next time, stay odd.